we'll take it in turns. So the first one is, how could we improve our current adoption system or our current way of doing adoption?
An easy way to do that is get rid of adoption. I think it's an archaic idea that, and I recognise I own it from being an adopted adult, but the idea that we remove a child from one family and place them into another as if it is their own seems profoundly wrong to me. I think there are other ways of creating a sense of family for children who need it in that way. I don't like the term permanency, and I don't like the idea that adoption equals permanency, because you all know as well as I do the amount of children who are returned from adoptive families. So clearly for them it is anything but permanent. I think we need to strengthen kinship offers. I think we need to look more at open adoption. Certainly here as ADM, we have a number of children who have been adopted where we have very clear, open, direct contact between adopted parents and birth parents. I would like to see that move to much more kind of shared care arrangements over time. Children don't just need one family. Children can have many families and feel a sense of belonging, and we shouldn't be removing them from a cultural, racial, class context and placing them in another as if it's their home. I think it ignores the reality of trauma and kind of the social and economic context.
Thank you. If you were a newly qualified social worker today, where would you work and what would you want to be doing?
If I was a newly qualified social worker today, I'd either go to South London and work in Wandsworth, because we have a fantastic ASY.
I thought you might say that.
And we support our social workers with systemic training. But if they were outside of London or easily commutable to the West Midlands, I'd say go to Solihull, because we've got a fantastic offer there, and we are going to make an amazing practice system building on what's there already, and that will develop and grow into somewhere that will be a humane, ethical place to practice social work. So go there.
Well, I think you earned the advertising opportunity. So,
what is one systemic idea that every social worker should know and use?
One systemic idea that every social worker should use. I think curiosity, being interested, not knowing. Don't understand too quickly. Be interested. And if you find yourself understanding too quickly, ask yourself the question, why am I understanding this too quickly? There is no one truth about any situation you'll come across. There are multiple ways of looking at it. Be interested in other ways and question your own viewpoint.
Thank you. And do you think you've realised your social justice aspirations?
No. And the answer to, the detail behind that is racism is rampant in children's services across the country. We take too many black and brown children into care. We move too quickly for black and brown children when they come into care to move into residential care. We adultify black and brown children too much. They're much more likely to be on child protection plans. They're much more likely to wait longer for adoption, and there are still children who are transracially adopted. None of that can be okay in a system that has the idea that we support social justice and racial equality. So no.
What is your morning routine?
Radio 4 today, 1 cup of tea, 2 cups of coffee, get on my motorbike and go to work.
Oh, you got a motorbike?
Well, a Vespa 300, so it counts.
And that, I guess, your kudos as a director rocking up on that. I like, yeah. What do you like most about the Families First reforms?
My goodness, I like the opportunity to truly develop, rebuild a system that works best for families. I think the Families First reforms are a bit misunderstood. I think local authorities think it's a lot about structural change. I don't think it's about structural change. There will be some structural change required. I think it's about putting front and centre the values of rebalancing the system, which means working with families to make change. So, family help is all about working with families to make change, wrapping around them in the most effective way, and preventing families going into multi-agency child protection teams unless they absolutely have to. So it means working with families in the right way to make change and working robustly with families where they might need a robust child protection response. And I think that has to be the right way to do it. And how we do it structurally, I think, will preoccupy local authorities. But actually, unless you've got the values and the culture of practice right, doing a structural change isn't going to realise the kind of the nature of the reforms. So I think the reforms are a good thing for us because they give us that opportunity to do things differently in a way that works best for families.
How does systemic practice help us think about risk and working with risk?
Oh my goodness, there's so many ways, Rich. I mean, Barry's paper around safe uncertainty was a major point in helping us think about risk in relation, using systemic ideas to think about risk. And I think it helps us in two ways to answer quickly. One is examining our own relationship to risk. So that idea of safety is about our emotional response to risky situations. So being curious about our own emotional response. So if we are working with a family, we worked with a family not that long ago, and long story short, the network basically said, if we leave this child at home, the child might die. Now, what is my emotional response to that invites me to think about safety for the child, and how might that actually mean I act in a way that is best for the child? We left the child at home because we put in place some support that we thought we didn't know was certainty. So there was absolutely uncertainty because you just don't know. But we thought on the balance of probabilities, this would probably allow a safety and we didn't want to remove the child into care because of all of that would entail for this child in terms of the trauma of separation and so on and so forth. So I think systemic ideas allow us to think differently about risk, not immediately move to a position of, say, certainty, and be curious about our own responses to risk and risky situations.
How should social workers talk about their own lived experiences?
As openly, as honestly as they want to. Everyone should have the right to edit their own personal experience for public viewing or consumption. But if I work with a practitioner who isn't open to the possibility of thinking about their own lived experience in a way that might influence their work with families, then I think that's a bit of a problem. So supervision has to be inviting practitioners to think about their own lived experience and how that might influence what they do. How they may share that with their supervisor or with their families is completely up to them. It's up to each of us as an individual. But I would put it as an ethical requirement for practitioners to certainly be open to considering, thinking, and talking about their own lived experience in relation to how it influences their practice. It can't not.
Do you have a favourite book that you've read or a favourite paper?
A favourite book is A Fine Balance by Raheem Mystery, which is about life, loss, partition in India. Amazing book. Favourite paper? I mean, the paper that I go back to again and again and again is Barry's. You'll hear me call him Barry. Barry was my tutor when I did my family therapy supervision course. And he was director of the institute when I trained as a family therapist. And I had the absolute honour and privilege of being able to talk to him a lot about the paper and do some teaching with him. Barry's paper is still the paper that I go back to. And I think it has changed the way in which, I go to other local authorities and people talk about safe uncertainty. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, that's impact. And yet I get something from it every time I read it.
Thank you. And our final question, Rasheed, is do you have friends in social work, in the social work profession?
Yeah, no, I do.